This week's session with myself, Rob Hawkes, the head of coaching, and Chris Blackburn will be joining me very shortly. We're going to be covering a topic which is something that we've done previously, which we've probably done about six weeks or so ago, which is third-party stories. So essentially, we're going to be covering the way to deliver third-party stories this week. So previously we spoke about how to and why and what, but what we're going to look at is actually making sure that we give you a real methodology to be able to do it. So yeah, it's part 5 of our 6-week series. So so just in the chat, so that's on Facebook as well as in Zoom. Just pop a little message in there for me. Let me know that you can hear me okay. Make sure that we're all on the same page together. It's also Chris's birthday today, so I want to make sure that yeah, that we all wish Chris a happy birthday. So yeah, please, when you see him, when he comes on in a second, please make sure that you're saying hello. And oh, Rod said hello. So yeah, hi Rod, good to see you. Yeah, make sure we are all we can all hear and happy. Mandy said happy birthday. Hey Frankie. So Chris will be here in a moment. I don't know where he is. I feel lost. I'm my partner in crime. So, hey Thierry, nice to have you on here. Brandon, good to see you, and Bob as well. Really nice to see you guys. And hi to those who are joining us on Facebook too. Giuseppe, here he is. Chris.
Good afternoon, technical Rob.
I'll tell you what happened in a little bit. But Chris is about to join me. You can join where you normally go, which is there. All right.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are we doing?
Everyone's welcome in, wishing you a happy birthday. So,
thank you so much.
All right. So don't forget, guys, if you're watching on Facebook, please get involved, comment, like, share, subscribe, YouTube, all that. But we're going to get into it. So last week we covered, what did we cover last week, Chris?
So last week we went through the tonality phase within building rapport. We obviously know the importance around tonality, so we covered the importance around that. Yeah,
we did, and I think we gave a few examples of that, and we went into we didn't cover all of the macro tones, but we looked at a few of them, didn't we? And we asked around, okay, what were the reasons why we use tonality? So it's the hidden influencing language. It's your ability to be able to get people to almost be inspired by the tone that you use. So so if you didn't catch last week's, then please go on. If you're in the Swish Academy, make sure you go back and watch it. I believe it's still on Facebook. I think you can scroll back through and have a look. But like I said, this week we're covering third-party stories. I've already kind of introed that we covered it a few weeks ago, but what we're going to do today is we're going to be actually covering a process, an 8-step process to how to deliver it. So
yeah, I think it's really important as well. I guess what we spoke about today, the difference between a first-party story and a third-party story as well. Just knowing when and how to deliver them. So I'm sure Rob's already pre-framed, but yeah, pen and paper at the ready.
I forget, that's your bit. I forget.
Pen and paper at the ready. Today we're going to run through this 8-step process as well, and just make sure that it's very practical and just something that you can utilize, whether you're sharing your story that would be classified as a first-party story, or whether you're trying to paint the picture of a third-party client that you've been able to assist with the services you offer for somebody that you may be speaking to as well, if that kind of makes sense. So what we'll be covering today is the first and the third party stories. So you can get pen and paper at the ready. We'll run through each step and sort of give the practical on how to utilize that as well.
Awesome. Hi to Glenn.
Yeah, thanks Glenn. There you go. And Giuseppe, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. I think it's the first time I've worked on my birthday. That's
ever?
Terrible.
Is it?
Yeah.
No, what do you mean terrible? No,
is that a good or bad thing? Maybe put that in the chat.
Should you work
on your birthday?
Yeah, if you've ever worked
on your birthday.
My birthday's in July, so it's traditionally during the summer holidays. So
not in Australia.
Oh yeah, apart from in Australia. Yeah. And I think I've worked my birthday. But yeah, put in the chat if you've worked on your birthday.
I've had a great day today with the team and everybody getting involved as well. Thank you, Brendan. Really appreciate that.
All right, let's get into it. So essentially, when we're talking about first party stories, something that we did a session on this morning was first party stories you get in there first. So when you're talking about yourself, make sure that you get in first. Why?
We'll give a prime example. I'm sure that'll explain the reason for why.
Okay, so you ever been in a situation where you're talking to again, we'll keep it relevant to sales. You're talking to a sales professional and you say that you're from somewhere. You say, oh, well, I'm from here, or I'm from there, or I'm doing this and I'm doing that. Let's say it's where you're from. I'm from Portsmouth originally. And then the salesperson goes, oh, no way, I'm from there. Or I know someone from there. Then, you know, goes a bit deeper into the conversation. Maybe they went to the same school. Maybe they support the same football team. The point being is that when you're sharing a first party story, you got to get in there first.
You don't want to be reactive.
Correct. Yeah. So a little takeaway there is be proactive, not reactive. For example, my favorite, the reciprocity-based question: answer your own question before you ask yours. So I'm from the UK. Chris, where are you from?
Correct. I'm also from the UK.
Common ground. He found it. I didn't find it for him.
Yeah.
Ryan always uses the example of his wife being in New Zealand, and he was on a sales call, and that they were actually, the prospect was actually from the same town as his wife, but he was being reactive. So where are you from? New Zealand. Oh, no way, my wife is from New Zealand. Whereabouts? Auckland. No way, she's from Auckland. What part of Auckland?
Yeah.
And it was, they were actually grew up in the same, him and his wife grew up in the, his wife and this prospect grew up in the same place. So get in there first. When delivering a first.
And Ryan even said that as well, right? You know, well, I guess this is what the prospect said to him. Well, I guess if I've done this, so have you.
Oh yeah, I think it was. If so I'm guessing if she was in the circus, so have you. So,
so hopefully that makes sense to a lot of people. I think if you're trying to, again, going back to rapport building that we're covering today, making sure. And I agree, Brendan, as well. Best day of sales is your birthday. It's been an awesome day today. But I do believe that if you are building rapport, especially through first-party stories, the proactive nature is key to that too.
Yeah, but we are focusing on third parties. So, but we just wanted to define the difference between the two. But what?
Well, I believe as well, to interrupt, I feel like what we're going to run through this 8-step process anyway. Is utilised for both stories. I don't know your opinion on that. I feel like you can follow what we're going to do for whether you're painting a picture for a first party story or whether it's a third.
Oh yeah, no, I'd agree. So you're suggesting it's not just for third party stories. No. Yeah. But remember that we're in our series of rapport building, guys. So the understanding of incorporating storytelling into this is so that you can show the individual that you're talking to that there's common ground. We're building a relationship that either you or someone in your network, could be a client, that could be somebody that you've worked with previously, could be one of the stakeholders in the business, have gone through something similar. The 8-step process, which is kind of lifted from some training that we did with Ben Harvey, Authentic Education. Hi, Ben, if you're watching. It's an 8-step process to give you the steps to be able to deliver a kind of a first-class story, as it were.
And take the customer through the journey.
Yeah, really, take them on a journey. Yeah, because you don't just want to go, oh yeah, well, so the customer mentioned something and you go, yeah, I had someone who went through that.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't really do it for me. Like,
or even the old school techniques of the feel, felt, found. You know, I completely understand how you feel. You know, I've had somebody who's been in the same position as well. This is, you know, what they found. Yeah. And really taking them through that journey. I find that this 8-step process is just more consultative, I guess, is probably the right way to explain that. So we've got about 15 minutes to go through 8 steps to sell a story.
We're going to have to pump our way through.
Go on.
No, I was going to say, just in the chat, I think what would be good if you can just give us some examples of some situations where you might use a third-party story. And maybe just say in the chat a situation where maybe you've moved ahead with a service because somebody else did. So just to come on board with the concept that third-party stories are relevant. So just in the chat, just write in there what your experiences of it are. So whether you purchased a product or a service, or whether you used something based on that story, or whether that be on Facebook or Zoom, and we'll come back to those. But okay, so what we're going to get you guys to do is write down these 4 letters. Okay, so SCEPCRT. It spells the word scepcrow. That's SCEPCROW. Okay, so scepcrow. And as Chris said, we're just going to really loosely touch on these 8 steps, and you'll find the benefit in that you don't have to use all of these in this order. Just like pitch, just like A not Oreo, you don't need to go, I have to do this in categorical order. It just gives you a bit of a framework so that you can sit down, pick apart a story, and then you can pick the bits that are most relevant to when you're delivering this.
And I think, like every week, I think the ability to tailor this in a 30-minute session to every industry that we've got the opportunity to be speaking to this evening is physically impossible. So like anything, see the framework, take the framework and apply it to your process. And in this instance, when you're communicating or trying to portray a message through to a customer, whether it's a first or third party story, try and pluck some of these out and implement that into your sales process. Even as a practical, maybe going through your, as you can see on our wall, we've been very fortunate to support thousands of businesses as well. Maybe write down your third party stories of what you've done for them and the outcome that they've sort of generated through the services that you've offered. Then with this 8-step process, when you've got somebody who's been in a similar position, hopefully this process then will assist you communicating that through to the client.
Yeah, absolutely. There is nothing more powerful than a testimonial, a communication of someone else's success for you to go and make a decision. There's plenty of people that we reference a lot inside of our training, and we've got guys that have just come on, like Giuseppe and the team, as well as Mandy, and we've got a lot of people that we reference a lot. But there's also a lot of individuals that will say inside of our 14-day challenge, they will actually talk about ISR and do our job for us. They'll actually say, well, I did this and this is what I got from it. And that in itself is powerful too. So, and
I guess that's again off topic, but one of the influencing tools is around consistency, right? I think having your third party stories collected and inside the database too just means that if you have multiple staff, they're consistent with the same message too. So I think, let's jump into it.
Yeah, okay. So S stands for set the scene. So set the scene, or in a summary, outline the situation. So you want to set the scene of the story you're going to use. So you had a story you were going to talk about, or a third party as well. So Chris will do that in a second, but I'll just give you mine from an example. So when I'm telling people my story about how I came through ISR, I typically start, well, it was back in 2015. I just arrived from the UK. My wife and I did a bit of traveling around Australia. We went to Sydney and the sunny coast. We came to the Gold Coast and we were looking for work. So I kind of set the scene, especially if I'm sharing my story. Again, I would do this first. I would talk about how I came through this process. And if I was talking about Ryan, for example, I'm building value in Ryan. Ultimately, Ryan and Jack are the directors of this company. I would actually set the scene around how Ryan was a mechanical maintenance engineer by trade. He was a very analytical, critical individual, and he'd never been in sales before, and he found himself working in retail selling before he met his business partner Jack Corbett at Broadbeach Football Club. So I'm just setting the scene of where Ryan was to where he is now. But what about your third party example?
I think we set the scene from a third party perspective is making sure that it's relevant to the individual that you're speaking to. So as an example, when you set the scene, if you're dealing with an inbound inquiry, you could say that's very, very similar. Abby Wilson, thank you for the happy birthday. Prime example. I got an opportunity to work with Abby maybe, God, it must be 18 months ago now, maybe, Abby, we had the pleasure to start. And Abby was the same. She reached out online, new business. So I'd be able to sort of set the scene with somebody that's looking to follow a similar achievement to where Abby's at today. And we can obviously run through that process and sell the story through that way. But I would set the scene and say, it's very, very similar. I had the pleasure and the opportunity around about 18 months ago. So that must have been in, the middle of 2019. We had an inquiry that came in.
18.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's exactly right. by a lady named Abby Wilson, actually. And that's me setting the scene of the journey that Abby has followed. Obviously, we'll follow it through, but I feel like setting the scene is making sure that it is very tailored in there. Abby, while you are on the chat, please drop a Y if you don't mind me sharing your story.
We want to just build in an understanding. You can go elaborate if you want. You can take it to quite simple and just say, well, look, and we had somebody reach out to us. It was a couple of years ago. It was 6 months ago. Just giving them a bit of a time frame, because that'll become relevant as we move forward.
Well, I feel like set the scene. The purpose behind that is to paint the picture.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It is. It's about understanding that you can outline where they were. I mean, we'll go through where they were at in a minute, but it just kind of building the framework to, okay, this is where that person was. And then, okay, so we've got S, set the scene. C, the first C stands for characters, or who was involved. So using my example, me and my wife, when we were looking for work, as I said, it's the individual. So you may use them by name. So Chris's example, Abby Wilson, in a particular industry, so on and so forth. Ryan, for example, he was, him and his wife, Jack Corbett. You're bringing in people to the story. So you're actually being able to name key individuals, especially based on the fact that if you're trying to build rapport, it needs to be a relevant storyline. It could be the sales manager, the CEO, the person was looking for sales training. I had so-and-so reach out to me and he was looking at this. So I'm kind of setting the understanding of, this is the character, this is the person who was involved.
And I feel like their position was key with what you've just said there.
Yep.
CEO, sales manager, new business owner, whatever that looks like.
So if you had someone in a similar industry to Abby, you would then say that. Exactly right.
And Glenn is also watching today, who's in a very similar industry to Abby, who knows Abby. And I went through this process with Glenn. He knows that, like he's now one of our academy clients, and same industry, same outcome looking to achieve. So for my job, I had to have an ability to communicate that through of what we've done, how we've done it, and more importantly, the outcomes that it's generated for the individual. And if I didn't do that and just went straight to presenting a product, it may not have had an opportunity now for you to work closely with Glenn too, right?
Maybe not. I think that we know that people follow others. So if we know that somebody in the same situation, that's why it's also important to not just say, okay, well, I had somebody, her name's Abby. It's actually like, it's important to build it like just a little bit. She was similar to yourself. She actually reached out because she was looking for X, so a little bit like you, and then they're like, yeah, okay. So we've got the S, set the scene. We've got the C, the characters. The E stands for, and this is the first time we bring it in, is the emotion. So E stands for emotion. So basically how they were feeling. So I was frustrated, grateful, happy. The sales manager was disappointed with the results, which comes into the next one. He was frustrated with the lack of sales. He was pissed off. He was whatever it is. So we're bringing the emotion into it. Remember, people buy on emotion. They justify through logic. So we need to bring in the emotion. Put you on the spot. Can you remember how Abby was feeling?
Maybe unaware of what potentially could happen with what we do, due to the fact of not maybe, I guess, understanding sales fully, as to never investing into sales training before, and not seeing it just as a closing of a transaction, but, goal setting. Me and Abby's spoken about, purchasing homes and some really, really huge goals that I'm so proud of Abby that she's been able to achieve. It's awesome. But understanding it fully, I think, was the emotion. It was more of wanting more time back. So it was my job to really understand. I guess the next point is around, nobody likes to sell pain. Do you know what I mean? But if there's no problem, we can't offer a solution. So naturally, pain points are very, very important when uncovering somebody's need. So the next part of SCEPCRO is P, and that stands for pain point, or in the nicest way, the challenge that they potentially are or were facing.
So like lack of understanding in sales, not getting enough sales,
not converting leads, things like that.
So it was just very simple. So this person, they reached out, they were frustrated, they weren't making sales, they weren't feeling confident.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I was finding it tough financially. I'd moved here. My wife and I were looking for work. I was struggling a little bit because I had a bit of an ego. Like I was like, well, I've done this and I've done that, and I couldn't find work. So I had a bruised ego at that point. So that brings in the journey that I've been on, especially people who know me now and to where I was before. So in my first party example, I could be quite raw with it, people by people, right? So they would buy into me and my story, which is I'm a product of the training. I always used to say you can go on Facebook and find a picture of a slightly overweight Rob stood with a cheesy grin and a sales certificate, but it's there, it's me, and that was my journey. So yeah, pain comes into the next point. They kind of go together. Now, some people, when they teach this or when they look at this, they don't actually cover the second C, the crisis. So C stands for crisis, because pain and crisis go together. But what I also like to identify the crisis point is the thing that you did, the point where it's like, okay, I need to take some action now. So for me, it was invest a couple of grand into doing the ISR bootcamp, one of the very first ones that we ever did, 4 or 5 years ago. I'd never invested in myself before. So that was a crisis point for me. I'd never done anything like that apart from, education at university, which is paid for by the government anyway. So not unless the student loan people are watching. Hello. It was a crisis point for me. It was like, it wasn't just a challenge. It was like, I need a job. Like I need finances.
And that must be difficult when, in the nicest way, only having $1,500, $2,000 in your bank and having to let that go.
Well, I didn't even have that. It was on credit card. So thanks HSBC.
There you go.
So just perhaps if you're on Facebook or just put a yes in the chat if this is making sense or if this is happening. Also if this is something that you have done before. Perhaps this is something that you actually do, but you weren't consciously aware of it. We're getting a couple of
Just
yeses.
to run through on how quick this could be, if you were to follow the process, again, putting you on the spot, let's just run through your first party story. So set the scene, explain who was involved, the emotion that you were facing, the pain point that you covered, and what the crisis point was for you. If you could run through that in 20 seconds, put you on the spot.
Sure. So back in 2015, my wife and I just arrived from the UK after backpacking. I was actually looking for work. I hadn't had work for about 8 months, so I was poor. And I was frustrated about not getting a job. I had a bit of an ego because I had a degree from the UK and I wasn't willing to do something I'd never done before. But I got to the point where I needed to make a decision. I came across Ryan and Jack at ISR through an advert online, and I was blown away by just everything that they had achieved and what was happening in this company. And I knew that I had to join into their training. So I invested a couple of grand into my own personal development, and my life changed dramatically. I was more focused, I was more confident, and I got into sales, which is something that I never thought was possible. Now I've been here for the last 5 years, having the most, probably the best 5 years that me and my wife have ever had.
Congratulations.
Something like that.
Hopefully people can sort of relate to that, how powerful that can be from a
We haven't even got to the other points yet.
Well, you've already covered it anyway, and hopefully that sort of makes sense. I know this is, us going through it on a step-by-step process, but when you take somebody through that journey, I'm sure, and again, you can never be assumptive, but I feel like somebody watching this would connect to that.
Yeah, you'd hope so.
Well, I do, because I've done a similar journey.
Yeah.
So I feel like people can relate to that. And people are then more inclined to ask questions and say, what was the main things you found through the training? Like, why did you do that in the first place? People then are asking you questions, not the other way around.
Yeah.
So that's obviously when you hit the crisis point. But as we know, crisis breaks into two. Is danger and opportunity. It's a dangerous opportunity. So what that means after the back of a crisis is the next part of the R is a resolution. What they chose to do, if you are making notes. So when we're offering the resolution or the solution, what does the customer choose to do?
So I did a boot camp. Ryan did 60-day stretch. He chose to, instead of flying back to the UK, he decided to do 60 days of immersement into psychology of selling, which, as we know, he went from 21 to 1 in 60 days, top of the board, never looked back. Now he's the co-founder and delivering sales training across Australia. A lot of our clients, people on the wall here, they decided to jump on board and to do our training. They decided to do the Swish Academy, the boot camp. And so it was, what did they do? What was the resolution that they found, or you helped them find? So I helped the individual come on board with. They were a little bit nervous. They were a little bit unsure. So when you're describing the resolution, make sure that we are bringing the emotion back in. For sure. When you're talking about Abby, she had never invested in that kind of thing before. Before we get to the O, which is the most important part for me, which is the outcome. What happened afterwards? What was the thing that they got or achieved? And this is the bit where I feel like what Chris said earlier about writing down your results of the clients, this is the key part, because if you get this bit right, then you'll have people.
This is where I believe that you're building all the logic. People buy an emotion, they justify in logic. So once you can logically, thanks Josie, loving the birthday messages coming through. I feel like, once you can create the emotion, justify in logic, again, facts and figures. So what the outcome were, percentages increase, or, confidence, whatever that outcome was for the individual with your products and services, again, tailoring it back to what you guys do. What was the outcome and what happened after they decided to move forward with you?
So Abby's example of reducing the working week from 7 days a week, so
to 5. Coming through onto one of our Swish boot camps, having individual training sessions with our CEO Ryan. That all came from a journey of Abby putting trust in me that our academy was going to support her business moving forward. And
I think the outcomes being, okay, the team closed more sales, the team were more confident. When that CEO came, he was so frustrated with the lack of results that they were getting, and then he invested and came into our academy, and the results they've seen has been phenomenal. And that's their increased revenue was $100,000. It was 5%. It was 20%. Whatever it is, make sure you hammer home that outcome was the thing that they got. Here we go.
Ask Frankie Fiamora what his outcome was after 60 years in business. I'll leave you with that one. Frankie, write it in the chat.
There you go. Everyone look out for the chat. And that was Ryan.
There's Ryan. I think he's going to make that a weekly a weekly cameo.
Comes in, and maybe we do it on his webinars. And then
maybe we'll see how we go.
But the last one, so we've got outcome, what happened after. But again, people buy on emotion. So what the last one is of Skepcrow is W, and what was the winning feeling? Leave on emotion. What was your winning feeling after you went through your journey?
I'm still riding that winning feeling. Like my journey hasn't ended, and it's one of achievement, accomplishment, success, humility. I feel very fortunate to be here, permanent residency. So I feel great, and my family does. So yeah, for me it was just it feels good. So if I'm talking about my clients, or I'm talking about the people that we're speaking about, it's like that they were so happy, they were fulfilled, they got to reinvest the money that they got from it. Whatever that winning feeling was to them, we just make sure that it could just be stress relief.
Anything.
Time
with the family.
Yeah.
Could be anything.
Yeah. So we're just making sure that you finish it off with that emotion, that this was how they felt. Again, remember, if we're dealing with enterprise or corporate clients, we may want to reduce the emotion a little bit, but that sales manager, he felt amazing when we had somebody who saw an amazing result, and you could too. It's that kind of like summary. And like Chris said, you can induce those questions being asked, then you've delivered your story very well. So, we're 5:30. For those on Zoom, you got about a minute of me just trying to figure out what I was doing and why. But for those on Facebook, it was seamless. Yeah. Hopefully that helped. If you guys can just again drop a yes in the chat. Who can remember what the acronym was? Maybe on Facebook and Zoom. This is a test. You don't like doing this, do you? Who remembers what the acronym was. If not, I'll pop it in the.
Or before you pop it in, whoever is the first person to write it in there, I'll give a complimentary half-an-hour session this week with whoever on whatever.
Whoever on whatever. First person to write what was the acronym that we've just covered
on Facebook or Zoom, and then we'll wrap it up for the evening because it's my birthday. And
Facebook are a little bit behind, so we might end it. And can Zoom
go.
win? I don't know. Like, hey,
Brandon, I look forward to speaking with you this week for half an hour. Fantastic.
Good on you, mate. Amazing. So Brandon Wilson, the winner of Chris's little.
Nearly. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. All
Rob
right.
can reach out to her. There you go. That's half an hour for Rob.
I'm not promising anything. All right, guys. Look, thank you so much for your time today. Remember, next week is our last session on this 6 stages of building rapport professionally. We are covering specific questions, Chris.
We are.
Yep. So we're going to be looking at.
That's very specific.
We're going to be looking at specific questions. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to our channel on YouTube, Vimeo. Connect with me and Chris on LinkedIn. I'm trying my hand at Instagram at the moment.
Follow him on LinkedIn.
Please be gentle with your comments around how I manage and navigate the crazy world of Instagram. I'm not like
learning.
Chris is a pro doing stories.
Nowhere near that.
Oh yeah, I don't know. You're better than I am. But do you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, thank you everybody for taking half an hour aside. I really appreciate it. I hope you found that practical and it's something that you can go and use immediately tomorrow and moving forward with your clients. Go and help more people. Stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you this time next Tuesday.
All right, amazing. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you all soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy your evening.